The Veterans Film Festival welcomes Peter Jang, who wrote, produced, and starred in his short film, Mask. With over 100 credits as an actor and stuntman, Peter has worked in the film industry since 2011. He is also the founder of the production company Simplicity Pictures. So with that, let's get into it. Hi everybody, I'm Alicia with the Veterans Film Festival. Today we have Peter, and we're so excited to hear his story. So let's get started. Peter, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Peter Jang. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. I came out to California for college at 18. Went to UC San Diego, got my economics degree. Then I moved up to Los Angeles and started working in the film industry for the last 14 years. I've been an actor and a stuntman on over 70 TV shows and movies over the last 14 years, and started my company Simplicity Pictures right here in 2016. That's been my production company, and this is my third short film that I made, and I'm looking to make my first feature film.
That's so awesome. I'm so looking forward to being able to present your film at this film festival, and I'm just like blown away by your background in the industry, and I've seen some of your work on your Instagram page and your YouTube, so it's really exciting to see everything put together.
Thank you.
And to get a little bit more about your relationship with the military and the veteran community, do you know anybody or have a relationship with anybody that has served?
Yes, my mother was a veteran in the Air Force, and she actually is 100% disabled from the Air Force for PTSD specifically, which is what my film was about, and it gave me a real connection to, on a personal level, the subject matter, and it was really important to me to make this so that I could address this not only for her, but also with a lot of the veterans that I've met in the stunt industry over the last 14 years. I've worked with many of them, and being able to talk to them and hearing their stories about their struggles with their care or lack thereof sometimes, and just the misconceptions of what PTSD is and what it is to be a veteran. And it just really informs me on all of my art, and not just this film, but just anything that I write and anything that I do. A lot of times does have to deal with trauma, because I feel that in today's society, trauma is a topic that isn't dealt with in the correct.
Exactly. For anybody who hasn't seen the trailer yet, we'll put it at the end of this interview. But having served myself and being able to watch the trailer, I was just blown away that you haven't served, that all your research and your insight of being able to speak with your mom and, like you said, the veterans that you've have come across. I feel like you've gave a really accurate description of what it can feel and look like, and, all those like key features that you've put into it. So we're really looking forward to presenting that film. There's so much that you just said, so I guess we'll hop around a bit, but one thing you mentioned is that you've came across working with veterans within your industry. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Maybe what's something that you see different with the veterans, or like questions that you like to ask to get to know them better and maybe their story too?
Sure. Well, one thing I've noticed, and something that is very well known about this topic in general, is that there is a certain stigma that comes with it. Some people don't want to talk about it. Some people want to pretend it's not happening. There's a reason why my film is called Mask in the first place, was I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was telling me about his experience, and he was just saying, when I go out, when I'm at work, when I'm with my family, when I'm with my friends, I have my mask on. And then when I come back and I take it off, then I deal with these symptoms and I deal with them alone. And he's since then changed that. But it was one of those things that a lot of people that have this problem deal with, is that they feel like they can't talk to people about it. The whole idea that there's something wrong with you for having this, dealing with trauma in whatever way that you can. And so a lot of times when I'm talking to my friends who are veterans who may deal with this, may not, I don't really talk about that. I just get to know them as people, because everybody's just a regular person. And if it ever does come up, I can kind of I try not to press it too much, but more or less I'm just saying like, how are you doing? I really don't want to ask them what they went through or this, that, whatever, because it's something that they would want to talk about or not. But being able to just say like, how are you doing as a person? Is there anything that I can do to help if you are having any troubles? And especially now that I've made this film, some of my friends do understand that it's something that I know a little bit about now too. So it's one of those deals that if I meet a veteran, I mean, they're just people, there's people like, like everybody else. And they're very interesting. They have very cool, interesting stories that I can learn about. And also just making sure that, like any of my other friends, that they're just taken care of emotionally and mentally as best a friend can.
Wow, that is so beautifully said. Thank you for sharing that. And I love this perspective that you have. I think it's so powerful being able to not only be a good friend and be a good listener and just it sounds like you're a good support system for the people around you. So I can see how that perspective allows you to get close to people. Like you said, just getting to know people for, who they are and meet them where they're at, which is so insightful. And I'm really appreciative of you sharing that. Well, you telling this story and you being able to, share about your friend as well, it helps share their story and their struggles and just open up the area to talk about that stigma that you mentioned. And I think you just worded it in a very beautiful way. And I'm really appreciative of you sharing that. So, a couple more questions to go off of that. Like you said, not a lot of people are open to sharing these things and, like they wear their mask. What do you think was the biggest struggle when asking questions about your film? What kind of questions do you think were most beneficial when maybe interviewing your mom, or what did that research look like?
Well, a lot of it, it is a well documented thing as well. So being able to look at, documentaries and news and statistics, I mean, that was very helpful. But, as far as with my mother, a lot of that, I mean, I have asked her about this thing, and the thing that was interesting to me is that actually for my mother, she is 100% disabled for PTSD, but it was not combat related. And I think that's a big stigma or a big misconception that happens a lot, that the only way that you can get PTSD is from combat. And it makes it so that there's a large swath of people that either believe because people have told them that, or not haven't even told, they just assume that they don't deserve care because it's not something that actually counts. And it leaves a lot of people without the care that they need, or even seeking the care that they need sometimes because they feel that they're not worthy of it for some reason, which is, you know, just a very sad thing. I mean, and when you start to realize that, so one statistic that is really stands out to me is that, that so many veterans commit suicide, that like I think four times as many that then have died in combat. I mean, that's a very harrowing thing to learn, and to realize that some of that is cultural. Some of that is this idea that, people don't feel like they should, get the help that they need, and they're dealing with this problem alone. And that's one thing I really wanted to convey in this film. It's pretty intense all the way up, and then the biggest part that I wanted to convey at the end was that, the love of family is something that can bring somebody back home, back to where they need to be. And, maybe they're not sharing, but just being a loving support to them, just on a human level, can change so much for so many. And I really hope that, we can start to understand that about people, is that it doesn't always have to be some like crazy, Hollywood type of, trauma that happened in their life to really affect them on a very human level that could lead to something much worse than it needs to be. So if my film can be one small piece of that, and hopefully my art in the future also helping that fact, then I think that I've done a good job.
Yes. Thank you for shedding light on this area. I do agree that your film is going to be able to open the eyes of people that may be struggling with these symptoms alone and feel like you said, like those cultural differences that make them feel like they're not able to open up or get help up in these areas. So I'm very thankful that you are not only not being a veteran, but being able to see the importance of there's a stigma here and knowing some through your own research and discovery and those areas that this is a real thing that veterans struggle with. To get into a few facts that I know off the top of my head, so 40% of nearly 40% of veterans have experienced PTSD throughout their career, but that actually doesn't get treated until they're out and getting treated at the VA if they do go to the VA. So I'm very thankful that you brought that to attention because when you are a veteran and you're filing for disability, the main questions that they have surrounding about PTSD are if you're in combat. So I can just see that connection that you've, seen research on and how this question isn't necessarily actually benefiting the person who served, especially when it's not combat related, but the issues are still there. So I'm so grateful that your film is not only like showing that these people aren't alone, but giving them an opportunity to see how there is light in order to get help and how you can help somebody. So I'm really looking forward to your film. So to go back a little bit into the film industry, can you tell us a little bit about yourself as far as what got you into film, what made you want to get into the industry, and everything in that area?
Sure. Well, I've been a martial artist since about 8 years old. I was national champion taekwondo for about 5 times when I was a teenager, and also fought for my college team. So, in those kind of martial arts worlds, like there's always kind of in the back of kids' minds, like, oh, I could be Jackie Chan, or I could be Jet Li or whatever. And but so it was always kind of just this pie in the sky, like, oh, that'll never happen. From where I'm from in Ohio, it was more or less like winning the lottery in my mind. I was like, I walk down the street and Spielberg does this and goes, "Here's $1 million. Meet me at the studio tomorrow." And then that's you get into the film industry. Once I moved out here and I studied economics, my father was an entrepreneur in Ohio, and I wanted to be an entrepreneur. That's something that I always wanted. And so there wasn't business at my school, but there was economics, and I really love economics, and that's a much larger conversation, but I feel like it's the way that people make decisions in their life. But when I graduated and I moved up to Los Angeles, I started working at a market research firm as a business development specialist. It was an entry level job. And I actually liked that job a lot, but I started doing extra work for fun. And I had done one day of extra work down in San Diego for a pilot that never aired. But I got kind of saw, I was like, oh, this is pretty fun. I was like, I always loved television. I love movies. I've been a writer since I was young. So I was like, oh well, this is cool. I like this. I've always like when I was very young, I was into poetry, and I like to write stories. And like I said, I never thought that it was a viable career, so I just kind of thought whatever. When I moved up to Los Angeles, I started working as an extra and doing these different things on the side of my regular job. I started realizing like, oh, this is a business. Like this is an industry, like every film is its own company, and the director is the CEO and the producers are the board of directors. Then you have your parent company, which are the studios. And I mean, it's all the same practices, same business practices, and it made it a lot more accessible in my mind. Made me understand like, there's something to this. So I started taking acting classes, and I fell in love with acting. I did a 3 year Meisner intensive in Santa Monica. Once, because I had my martial arts talent, then people kept on pushing me towards the stunt guy, being like, "Hey, you should be a stunt guy. Oh, you know a stunt? You ever thought about stunt?" I didn't know like that was different than acting. So I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I started talking and meeting some of them, and then kind of got a little bit further into the community, and I started training with them a lot. And eventually, I got my first major SAG contract on CSI New York, and yeah, and then I just kept on going. That 14 years later, it's my entire life, and I love it. And I'm able to merge my entrepreneurial spirit with my artistic spirit. And I've always, at a very young age, decided that I really wanted to try to impact the world in a positive way. I find that there's a certain magic in filmmaking that allows you to change the way that somebody looks at the world and to change the way that somebody thinks about topics. And obviously through entertainment, but on the other end of it, it's not just entertainment because we are influenced by these things. And it's amazing how much film can really affect the world over in such a sensational way, sometimes even more than even, technology or so. Because like, maybe somebody invents something that's, kind of like an iPhone or something like that, but not everybody can afford it at first, and it takes a while to get around. But if somebody makes a big movie, you talk to somebody in like the jungles of some distant place, they still know what Hollywood is, and they still know, what films are and like what certain films are and everything like that. And that culture is like just goes every, or that magic just goes everywhere and reaches every place in on Earth. And at the very basic level of humanity, it is storytelling. It is sitting around the fire, telling each other about things and that's how we learn. That's how we interact with each other. That's how we relate to each other. That's how we build empathy with each other. So being able to not, being able to do that has been the joy of my life.
What? You're a man of many trades, so that is so awesome to see. And first of all, thank you for sharing that perspective of how you kind of like had a shift in mindset of how you were viewing the industry and seeing it in a way that relates to you. This is my favorite part of being able to interview is seeing how from a young age it was something that you've always were attracted to, that always lit you up. But like you said, you didn't know it could actually grow into what it is. So being able to see from the young age and how it just like slowly evolved into your career and how people just connected you into doing more things, but also you being open to learning and trying new things to lead you to where you are today is so inspiring. So it is my favorite part about interviewing, and I'm really thankful for that you've shared that part of your story. And like you said, I agree. Films have always been really big to me as a child, and it's really awesome to see like the level of creativity you had not only as a kid but of what you do into your work and knowing the value of influence that films have and just having that perspective in general. It just makes me really excited to be a part of your journey and being able to share your story as well. So thank you so
Well,
much
thank
for
you.
that. To kind of get into the last question here, I know we did talk a lot about the idea of building your film, but is there anything that you would want your audience to know going into watching your film?
Yeah, my film, I wanted to get to the emotional core of what I was trying to portray. It does deal with my film, does deal with a combat veteran who, after going to a funeral of one of his friends, has a breakdown in a boxing gym and spends the day exhausting himself while missing calls from his wife and while being on hold at the VA, which can be endlessly frustrating. And just I wanted to capture some of the thoughts that were in, but also on the other end of it, though, I wanted the audience to be kind of forced to sit with him. And there's a long scene in the middle where we just have to be with him, and it's silent, and it can be almost excruciating. But it's one of these things that I kind of went back and forth because I had some people who was like, well, maybe we should shorten this, shorten that. I was like, no, well, I feel like the experience of this is what I wanted to have with the audience, so that there can be a certain amount of um, uncomfortability that can be felt not just from what's happening on camera, but also from the audience. So you going into it, I think being able to just know that it is pretty intense. It can be kind of hard, but on the other side of it though, the real message of it is that love is the thing that is going to bring people back from the brink. And even if it goes unanswered for a while, the effort is so important for everybody to do. And even though it can be challenging with, you know, loved ones and friends that maybe say they don't want the help or whatever, but still just being there and giving what you can when you can and being patient with them, you know, can sometimes mean all the world, a world of difference without you ever knowing.
Yeah. Well said. And I love this idea of, like you said, you contemplated having that moment of discomfort for your audience. I really appreciate you putting that in there, and I'm excited to see it, because not only is this for anybody who's been a veteran, but it sounds like anybody who's going through grief in general. It can be hard to, you know, think you always have to have the right thing to say. But like you said, just sitting with somebody and being in that discomfort with them can mean the world. So I'm so looking forward to later on when we present this. So I really want to thank you for your time and being able to share so many insightful perspectives that you have on the industry, veteran community. So thank you so much for being here. And for anybody who wants to connect with you, what is a good way that we can connect with you? Social media, email, website, anything like that?
You can find me on Facebook. My Instagram is Peter Jang Official. My website for my company is Simplicity Pictures again, and it's www.simplicity.pictures. There's no .com at the end. It's simplicity.pictures, and that has all of my films so far. It'll be updated on my upcoming films, and also it has my personal page as well. It has my acting work, my stunt work, my fight choreography work, my writing profiles are also there. You can find me on Coverfly for my screenwriting, and you can find me on the International Screenwriters Association website as well. I do have a YouTube page called it's Simplicity Pictures. You'll see this logo right there, and it has my films and some different uploads from there as well. And they'll be updated also with any upcoming films that I have.
Yay! Thank you again for your time, and we'll link all that information in the bio. And we're going to wrap it up here. So thank you for being here, and we're going to head out. Bye.
Thank you very much.
New message. Hi, baby, it's me. I saw that you woke up
Your
before
call
me
is
and
busy.
headed out.
Please continue
Thank
to
you
hold
for
for the next
feeding
available
babies. I
agent.
appreciate that.
You
I'm
may
so
also
glad
visit
to
our
live off right
website
now.
at
Hi, on my lunch break.
www.benefits.va.gov for assistance
Have an
with some
amazing
of our
day.
most commonly
I'm
asked questions.
on your brain. Break today.
Your brothers. Okay, I
Birthday of rest.
really good. But you?
Your call is important.
Thank you for your service, sir. Here's your discount. Don't forget to take your pills. Hey, baby.
Hey, babe. We just got in.